guys can be seated for just a minute, and we're going to do something a little different. We're going to invite Matt and Eric to come join me up here. And could we just say a huge thank you to both these guys for leading us tonight? It's yeah, it's a really cool thing that we get to be a part of, and so what we wanted to do is even take a minute to let this kind of be practical coming out of the message and talk. And I just want to say to everybody here, I really appreciate both these guys. They've been a huge encouragement to my faith. And so there's no superstars here throughout this weekend. It's just people trying to follow Jesus faithfully. We do that imperfectly, but we can learn from one another. And so we're going to take some time over the next couple nights. We'll do this each evening just to be able to talk and hear how some of the things that we've even learned or learning through the messages and through the Word apply to our lives, just even practically. So, we're talking about fear tonight, and so I'm just curious from you guys. It's been a while since you were teenagers, but as you're thinking back, those middle school, high school years, maybe you tried to suppress all those memories. What was something or a couple things that were fears in your lives? And looking back on that now, what have you learned about those fears? Whether it was kind of present working through them or now kind of in retrospect looking back, just knowing who's in the room and what they're walking through. I think it could be helpful for us. So either of you want to start?
Yeah, I think for me the root fear in high school, middle school, high school is really where it started, was the need for approval. So many of the sins that I would commit were really the fruit of that root when I look back. When I think about being sexually promiscuous, when I think about, drug and alcohol use and things that I did in those times, most of those things were, almost never were those things the end in of themselves. It was those things would make you think about me. If I could drink a lot, or if I could, have that girl, right? It's what you think about me that I can, not the thing itself. And so approval was the root idol for me. And even still today, I have it. So it manifests itself differently, but I still have to guard my heart around that same root, which just tells you, you're always guarding the heart at all seasons of life. Even if the sin isn't manifesting itself in the same ways, it can often have the same root. So that was for me, just approval, people pleasing. Yeah.
Arachnids.
What was that?
Arachnids.
Arachnids.
Spiders.
Spiders, yeah. Anybody else in here afraid of spiders? You just be honest. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. No, I think, similarly, I was what is called a late bloomer. Okay, so I was like the little guy in middle school. I was just like the tiniest little dude, and so I did have a lot of, similarly to Eric, I had a lot of fears, and that I needed to make up for. I needed to make up for something. I needed respect. Because I'm a little man, kind of scrapping for all that. And so, yeah, I think there was a sense in middle school and high school that in middle school it was more through an introversion and kind of a hiding. In high school it was more through a popularity and kind of like being, I was voted most spirited in high school and did all the crazy business. But again, a lot of that was driven by fear. It was driven by needing people to like me. So
yeah.
So, and I think you both guys are kind of saying the same thing. There's an approval, fear of man, what they think, and I assume that's probably everybody in the room. We resonate with that. We might have individual fears, whether it's arachnids. For me, blood and any other type of bodily thing is not something, which is bad when you have 4 kids, because there's, anyways.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good. So we'll get into this a little bit more tomorrow night, but how do you fight against that fear of man, approval of man, just practically? Anything that you guys have to say about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, and to even say, like, to catch it up to now, I mean, I think, still, like, struggle with that. Still, I think as a ministry person, sometimes I have this fear of, like, feeling like I'll be exposed or whatever. I'm a wreck, I'm a mess, just like everybody else. But, you have this, like, sense of platform personality or whatever that you, so that's a real fear for me. I wrestle with fear about the future, about, decisions that we'll make, and fearing that I'll, like, choose the wrong path or choose the wrong thing, and I'll screw my life up. And so, yeah, those are real struggles. And, I guess for me, a lot of things in life, come back to worship. So I think when, I forget what, like, theology person said it, but it was like, our emotions are like the smoke from the fire of the altar of the God we worship. So, you think about your emotions, like fear being one, fear, anxiety, anger, despair. So those are like smoke, and so they're important to listen to, they're important to see, but you trace those things down to the fire of the altar of whatever God you worship. So, if it's anxiety, well, why do you feel the anxiety? Well, I feel this anxiety because, I'm going to be exposed or whatever. So what you're worshiping actually is your reputation or yourself, or whatever. And so, yeah, for me, I guess it's those moments of when I feel the fear. My hope is that I remember that, okay, that's an indication, and I take that emotion in that moment and to say, all right, this is my emotions are preaching to me, and they're saying, you're not worshiping Jesus, you're worshiping something else. And so to take that, to kind of sit with my heart for a minute and say, all right, what is that thing? Why am I afraid? Why am I anxious? Why am I despairing? Why am I angry? And to say, all right, what's the thing I'm actually worshiping? And to remind myself to give that to God, remind myself that whatever that thing is, in 1,000 years, it's going to mean nothing. It's going to mean absolutely nothing. And just to reorient my heart in that moment, and obviously that's what life. That's what you do. I mean, that's the Christian life. And so it's not like it happens in a snap and it's done. But I guess I just try to do that. I try to sort of frame the emotion as a worship issue, and just bring it to the Lord and say, God, help me, save me, rescue me.
I think that's great. And you're getting that too, Eric, that a lot of times, I guess when we think about fear, we don't necessarily think about worship. But they are. I mean, one flows out of the other, and I think a lot of times we, kind of like you said, we look at the smoke, instead of the fire. We look at the fruit instead of the root, and what's really down there. So one of the points that you said about, battling fear, you talked about joy in the Lord, joy in Christ and being found in Him. And Matt, you've even talked a lot tonight about the gospel and the different sides of the coin. And so I'm just curious, and I might be the only one thinking about this, but how do you guys personally preach the gospel to yourself? Like, how do you keep that on the forefront? For everybody who's in this room who says, yes, I do believe in Jesus, I am trying to follow Him, how do you keep the gospel there? And I was even thinking about in 2 Corinthians when Paul talks about, this light momentary affliction, is not compared to the eternal weight of glory. He's looking to something bigger that was carrying him through his experience. So any just practical helps for us in that, for how you keep the cross center in your own lives?
Yeah, I mean, so not to sound cliche, but I start every morning with the Lord before I spend it with anyone else. And in those moments, I'm trying to be very intentional about what I'm feeding my heart in terms of my thoughts, and in terms of what I'm reading, in terms of my own prayers. And the first thing I do is I get up and I start making coffee, and as it's making, I'm pacing my kitchen floor. Literally, if you come by my house, don't come by my house, but if you drove by my house.
Might be a little creepy.
Yeah, if you drove by my house between 4 and 5 in the morning, I'm pacing my kitchen floor as coffee makes.
How many of you guys are up between 4 and 5 in the morning? Anybody? Okay, we got a few. Sorry, keep going.
And what I'm doing as my coffee's making, before I even utter my first prayer, is I'm trying to actually speak the truth to my own heart. I'm literally preaching to myself. Eric, you are made by God. You're made for God. You're made to glorify him, to worship him. You're a sinner, but he sent his son for you. You're loved. He opened your eyes. He gave you a new heart. His spirit dwells within you. He delights in you coming to him this morning. He delights in hearing from me. He desires to speak to me. And I don't have like a script. I just speak the gospel to myself. And I can do that usually while the coffee pot's making. And just really, I'm just ready in my heart is all I'm doing, because one, I need coffee when I get up. I don't jump out like, oh, the joy of the Lord, right? I need to get my heart ready. And let's be honest with you, because sometimes I got to drag my heart to that place, right? Because I'm waking up tired and groggy and in a hospital room, right? It doesn't mean like I'm just always waking up like ready for quiet time. So one of the reasons I do have to do that is I got to get my heart ready. And then I just, I'm trying to spend time in prayer. I'm trying to spend time reading the Word and take whatever I'm reading and hearing from God today with me throughout that day. And so it's just, I think, abiding in Christ, abiding in the Lord, communion with the living God. You and I have been saved into union for the purpose of communion, right? So the union is our legal status. The communion is our relational status. And so you enter into union with God by faith, but that gives you now the privilege of having communion with God and relationship. And so I think we've just got to run to that every day. That has to be our heart.
Matt, any thoughts?
There's really, I would just totally echo that, and I would just say, again, to kind of reorient what we're talking about in the sort of lens of worship. One of the reasons I think I'm a Christian and I believe in God and I'm a religious person is because I've just seen in my own life how, when you wake up in the morning, you wake up with this restlessness, this surging in your heart and in your emotions and in your soul. You're like going to your phone, or you're going to, you're just like, you wake up as a consumer, and you wake up worshiping. And it's like you never start worship, you aim it, and
That's good.
like, it's just like what Eric's saying. So you take that beast, that your heart's just arrows are flying out of it towards something, and those emotions and the anxiety and the fear and the anger, and you wake up and it's just like, it's just happening. It's all happening. And if you don't take that and aim it somewhere true, then where do you go? I mean, where do you end up? And you do that for a day, and then you do it for a month, and then you do it for a year, and then you do it for 5 years, and it's like then where are you? You've wasted your life. So,
And haven't you found that if you start the day and you got that turmoil, and you do, all of us do, and you just go through the religious motions of, I got to say a prayer, I got to check off a box here and read a chapter. If you're not actually bringing your heart to that place, you can actually just be going through motions. Yeah. So that's why you have to do like what you said. I think you have to grapple with that wrestling. Yeah.
Just one last question, and you kind of alluded to this as you were wrapping up. Just that it's not a solo sport. You talked about it. It's not just something private. For you guys personally, what role have the people of faith, the church, other believers played in your pursuit of faith, your fight against fear? And and we live in a society, and even inside ourselves, like, we want to be self-sufficient. It's easy to kind of be a solo sport and some of those things, and even sometimes view the church as it's just kind of this religious institution thing. So what role do the people of God for you guys play in this?
Well, I mean, just a huge one. I'm a natural introvert, and so I just, I kind of go and hide from the spiders and just hang out. And so when you're in that spot, you become, you lose perspective, and so I need people to to tell me, it's the means of grace. It's waking up in the morning and reading Scripture. It's gathering together with believers. It's being known. It's being loved. And yeah, so I need that with, from my wife, from the guys in the band, from guys, at church, men, and just have to I don't find it naturally, so I have to put myself in those spots to hear and to listen. And there's a couple guys in Nashville, a couple older songwriter guys who I meet with and hear from their wisdom and remind me that spiders are not going to kill me, and it's going to be okay, and I'll be okay. And my wife, like I shared with you earlier that she's just awesome. She's just so awesome, and like we've been married. This April will be 10 years, and man, she's an amazing person. And one of the things, actually related to fear, that lately we've just been fear about the future, just like what's coming, where are we heading, what's next. And this phrase, I think she read it somewhere or something, but this has been like the phrase. She said, we go under the mercy, just the mercy of God. You're gonna, in life, you're gonna fail, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna make wrong choices, you're gonna make morally wrong choices, you're gonna make, career choices, or you're gonna do all these things. It's all under the mercy of God. Go under the mercy, and there's so much liberation in that, and a way, and a lack of fear. That if we believe that, and so yeah,
it's awesome. Well, hopefully no one will come put some fake spiders up on your keyboard over the course of the weekend. Yeah, we don't want to induce anything. Hey, I do just want to say, and Matt didn't ask me to do this, but something that's helped me even in my pursuit of the Lord, and I think would be super helpful to you, are some of the things that you put out, especially your book, Look and Live. It's been one that I recommend a lot, of just when it comes to worship and trying to look at Jesus as being the all-supreme joy of our lives. And so if you're looking for, it doesn't replace the Bible by any means, but something to come alongside of that, some of your music and what you've written has been really helpful to me, and I know many other people, and I'm thankful for what you guys do. Can we say thanks to Matt and to Eric for serving us this weekend? Well, it has been a great night one. We've got a video we want you to watch that has to do with those red X's on your hand, and then Blake's going to come, close us out, let us know what we need to know for tomorrow. So check out the screen, okay?